Invention is often a creative process. An open and curious mind allows an inventor to see beyond what is known. Seeing a new possibility, connection, or relationship can spark an invention. Inventive thinking frequently involves combining concepts or elements from different realms that would not normally be put together. Sometimes inventors disregard the boundaries between distinctly separate territories or fields. Several concepts may be considered when thinking about invention. So here are the 7 of the most accidental inventions ever.
The popular tale of the invention of the potato chip is that in 1853, New York chef George Crumb served up a meal for Cornelius Vanderbilt, who sent it back to the kitchen because the fries were too thick. In response, Crumb fried up some super thin potato shavings and sent those back out, because some people just don't like criticism. The chips were a hit, and the world's snacking habits changed forever. As great a story as it may be, none of it's true. They start with the fact Vanderbilt wasn't even in the US at the time the incident supposedly happened, and add that newspaper clippings from 1849 sang the praises of a cook named Eliza, who had a major reputation for her potato frying prowess. The first time the story about Crumb ever showed up was in 1885, and Vanderbilt wasn't even included in the story until more than 100 years later. Historians have no idea what the real story is, but suspect it's more accurate to say Crumb helped popularize it, instead of inventing it. So, where did it come from? The microwave has evolved into one of the most popular household appliances in the world, but few people know that it was invented entirely by accident. In 1945, Percy Spencer, an American self-taught engineer, was working in a lab testing magnetrons, the high-powered vacuum tubes inside radars. One day while working near the magnetrons that produced microwaves, Spencer noticed a peanut butter candy bar in his pocket had begun to melt shortly after the microwave oven was born. Today, Percy Spencer's invention and research into microwave technology is still being used as a jumping-off point for further research in radar and magnetron technologies. Different wavelengths of microwaves are being used to keep an eye on weather conditions and even rain structures via satellites, and are able to penetrate clouds, rain, and snow, according to NASA. Other radar technology use microwaves to monitor sea levels to within a few centimeters. Police are also known to use radar guns to monitor a vehicle's speed, which continuously transmit microwaves to measure the waves' reflections to see how fast you're driving. But none of this would be possible if Spencer hadn't first realized the melting candy bar in his pocket all long years. Dr. John Harvey Kellogg was a man that was a bit uncomfortable about sex. He believed that sex was detrimental to physical, emotional and spiritual well-being. He personally abstained from it, and never had sex with his wife. They were even sleeping in different rooms and adopted all of their children. But, even though Dr. Kellogg believed sex was bad, masturbation was even worse. Kellogg's solution to all this suffering was a healthy diet. He thought that meat and certain foods increased sexual desire while cereals and nuts could curb it. That is why, when he was working at Michigan's Battle Creek Sanitarium, he tried to create healthy breakfasts that would help people curb masturbation. One of them was cornflakes. This idea for cornflakes actually began by accident when Kellogg and his younger brother, Will Keith Kellogg, left some cooked wheat to sit while they attended other issues at the sanitarium. When they returned back, they found that the wheat had gone stale. Instead of throwing it, they decided to continue the process by forcing it through rollers, in a hope to obtain long sheets of the dough. What they ended up with though, were flakes, which they then toasted and served to their patients as healthy, ready-to-eat anti-masturbatory morning meals. Will, which had less interest in the healthy issues and had more business sense than his brother, went on to add sugar to the cornflakes and started selling them through the Kellogg's company. The product was patented and the rest is history. The Slinky may have become a phenomenon, but it was born accidentally. Richard James, a naval engineer during World War II, was working with torsion springs when one fell out of the box. He watched in awe as it walked across the table. He spent the next few years tinkering with coils in search of slinkiest shape. Shopkeepers thought it was too boring for kids, as kids love colorful toys. So James took marketing into his own hands. He staged a department store demo that sparked a craze, and 72 years later, more than 300 million units have been sold. Lots of reasons have been given for the Slinky's enduring appeal: it's cheap, or it teaches kids physics. But Betty James, who came up with the name for her husband's famous offspring, always knew the secret, which she shared in a 2001 interview. "Children love simple things," she said. The discovery of the first non-stick technology started with research on another modern kitchen staple, the refrigerator. Scientists at the Kinetic Chemicals plant, a subsidiary of DuPont, were searching for a less toxic chemical to use as a new refrigerant. An Ohio-born scientist named Roy Plunkett was part of this research team. In 1938, he set up a mixture meant to produce tetrafluoroethylene gas and left it overnight. The next morning, he arrived to work to find a white, waxy substance in place of the gas he had expected. After analysis, the new substance was found to be polytetrafluoroethylene, or PTFE, and was quickly recognized as an exceptionally slippery substance. The chemical was patented in 1941. DuPont trademarked the process and chemical as Teflon in 1945. It was not until Marc Gregoire, a French engineer, found a way to bond PTFE to aluminum that the first non-stick cookware was created. Marc Gregoire and his wife, Colette, started selling their cookware in France. In 1956, they founded the Tefal Corporation. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, approved PTFE for food processing equipment in 1960. With this approval, Tefal, known as Tefal in the U.S., began selling its pans in the United States. Other manufacturers soon joined the market. An English chemist named John Walker was working on an unrelated project when he accidentally invented the match. He had a stick that was covered in chemical and he casually dragged it along a paper with phosphorus on it. To his shock, the stick lit on fire in a controllable manner. Walker knew instantly he discovered something revolutionary. He began to market them, even though the safety measures were not yet perfected. He was advised to patent his design but opted against it, thus losing business to others who took his design and built upon it to create safer matches. Most of the inventions in history were made by accidents. The present car windshields were also invented by accident. Edward Benedictus made an accidental discovery in his lab. One day, in 1903, he dropped a beaker, sending the flask to the floor. It broke, but its pieces held together. Cellulose nitrate, a clear liquid plastic left in the beaker, had dried and kept the glass from breaking into shreds. After experimenting further, Benedictus developed safety glass, and he hoped to promote its use in automobiles. Benedictus, in 1910, added a gelatin layer which stuck to both panes of glass and patented Triplex. The Triplex Glass Company was founded.